Trigger warning. I was thinking right now of conversations that used to infuriate me of family members using my fictitious future children as reasoning on why I shouldn't have gotten tattoos and things like that. But not just that. They would ask me to think about my non existent children when making political decisions or decisions about my life or decisions about my body and so on and so forth. At the time, these conversations that I'm talking about, I was maybe 19, 20 years old. I touched base with that same person when I was in my mid to late 20s again. And I made it very clear at that time as well, like my tattoos should not matter to my fictitious future children. These were my choices, my decisions. Are you gonna like it if they choose? Yeah, I don't care if they choose to get fucking tattoos. It's a choice that they make. Well, why would you, dude? Because I'm making decisions based on my belief system and not yours. However, these are the same people that are telling me that I shouldn't be doing things to my body, including when I went into holistic treatment and moved away from Western medicine. Um, because essentially the medicine was making me very ill and they couldn't find the right combination. And, it wasn't from lack of trying, okay? And so these decisions that were mine to make, but these people were always giving their fucking opinions and acting like I owe them medical information that I don't owe you. I'm making them based on my experience and the fact that I am medicine resistant and I react poorly to some of these medications. My decisions shouldn't dictate whether or not you invite me to a family get together because I smoke weed or not. My medicine shouldn't matter. But these are the same people that, when their children are grown, do not want their children talking about the decisions that these people made for them. You were the adult in your children's life. They get to tell you how your decisions affected them. You don't get to say, hey, I did the best I could. Now shut up about it. Why would you make those decisions if you didn't, if you should have stood on those decisions like you told me to stand on the decisions of my tattoos? Because I don't explain my tattoos to anybody. No children, nobody. My body's mine to make my decisions. Same thing with medical choices. You don't know enough about my medical conditions for you to dictate, hey, maybe you should try this, or maybe, have you tried this? Cool. Everybody's always giving you advice on how to get better when they themselves don't have their health under control. Because a lot of these people telling me how to be healthy are the people who are overweight, who still have severe conditions due to stress because they preferred their lifestyle over their health. I couldn't do that. I didn't have that choice. I had no way of suppressing my illnesses because the medications were turning me into a zombie. And that too was seen as a problem. So no matter what, I'm going to be wrong no matter what. So I may as well do what's best for me, which I have done. However, my fictitious children are suffering because of it. When I went to Mexico like 2 years ago, it's like, dude, you're so idealistic. It's why you suffer so much. And it's like, no, I suffer because I live with conditioning, and not just conditioning, mental conditioning. I live with conditions that my vessel has given me for quality of life. And yet, if I never spoke about them, y'all wouldn't know shit about it. But people always have all this reasoning to judge why a person should or should not do something. Why you would be perfect for this profession, but not for the one that you're working. Why you should talk more about your family life and your health life, but then why you should shut up about it. We share what we want about ourselves. You don't owe people explanations, even if they're blood relatives or married to blood relatives. We are not that close. We check in with each other once every 2 to 5 years. You think I owe you my medical history? And based on a couple hours of interaction, you think you know my character? Or based on my interactions with family members that were honestly very, very harmful to me, you think you know who I am based on my reactions to their abuse? When you're only getting one side of the story and you don't even want to hear my side of the story, you just want things to go back to normal. So it's easier to tell me to forgive and forget and think about the children, which I did for many years. It's why I didn't leave until the children were all 18 or close enough to 18 where I felt comfortable leaving and living with that decision. I was like, oh, because you're a people pleaser. No, not because I'm a people pleaser. I was never a people pleaser. Get your story fucking straight. I stayed and I made a choice to stay because there was minors involved. Once the minors were no longer babies, I could start removing myself little until I was gone. I made a commitment that I stuck to because I couldn't live with what happened if I walked away while the kids were, if something happened to the kids while they were little. I couldn't live with myself if that happened. I wanted to stay close enough to know. Now I don't want anything to do with that. Choices were made. Consideration for my life and my well-being and the choices I make for my life was never given. The people around me chose not to get to know me enough to understand that I stand behind the decisions I've made, and the mistakes I've made, I take full responsibility for and accountability for. If you come to me and want to talk to me about, hey, you know what you did hurt me, I will listen. However, if your story comes like you did this to hurt me, cool. But don't just start at the part of the story where I hurt you if you had something to do with that. I will listen to you, but that does not mean that I have to take accountability for it. I will listen to you, to your side of the story, as you should to mine. However, I will not listen to stories I was not a part of. I will not listen to stories you were not a part of. It's not my business what is going on over there. I've said that many, many times before. And I may bring up joyful things that's going on, but I don't bring up people's shit the way people bring it up on me until it's necessary to point out the elephant in the room, because the one bringing the elephant into the room is usually the one talking about everyone else's elephants and not their own. Family and blood relatives do not always make good medical choices for you. So if you're chronically ill, I do recommend that you put everything in writing of what your choices are and take that away from your family, no matter how young you are, no matter how young we are. Because I learned at a very young age that, my niece getting into a car accident and not having a plan, leaving my sister to make decisions. My sister couldn't make those decisions. She couldn't even think straight. You need to have a plan. You need to have an emergency contact that can make those decisions for you, or you need to put it in writing what your decisions would be. I know nobody wants to think about that when you're in your 20s, but you do need to think about that. And if you're chronically ill, you doubly need to think about that because your future matters. And if you have family members that are not willing to learn about your conditions and instead exacerbate your conditions because they're choosing to stay in the same toxic dynamics, you as the chronically ill person needs to decide whether your health or your relationships matter. Because your health will suffer. And it will suffer greatly. Especially if people choose to be entitled and upset because you don't want to share your entire medical history with them. You don't earn my trust. You don't get to know that much about me. You guys get to know the surface diagnoses. You don't get to know how it affects my regular life, because it affects it greatly. But it's none of your business. And when I have family members, that's why I don't really even check in with family members. Sometimes it's very condescending. Um, and it's like, dude, y'all don't even like the choices that you made. You may not have tattoos on your body, but you don't want your own children talking about. So everything that I said in those conversations that made them pull away from me and be angry in my early and late 20s rang true now that, that particular cousin, their daughter is always, removing contact because of their behavior. Like, you're going to behave like this, you're not going to talk to me. Sorry. Why are we having to raise our parents? And I get it. Everyone says it's because they didn't have the opportunity to emotionally grow. Some of us didn't either. But we took the time anyways. And we isolated ourselves and took that isolation as an opportunity to get to know ourselves, instead of an opportunity to surround ourselves with people we didn't like so that we didn't feel alone. Even though when I was surrounded by, every time people came over to the house, I felt more alone than when I was in the house by myself. Keep that in mind. I love you and have a great day.